Maniac. This is Syed Mahmoud Amiri, and in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you guys how to create the title from the movie Venom based on the trailer. So let's take a look. We are Venom. So as you can see, it's a pretty cool effect based on the trailer from the movie. And if I go to the reference folder, I have some reference images from the title itself. And as you can see, it's got a lot of detail, a lot of these small sort of swirly details. But once you learn how to do it, you can put as much time and as much detail as you want into it. Okay, so let's get started on this. I'm just gonna go to composition, new composition, and make it name it Venom, maybe title, and we'll make it 1280 by 720 and 25 frames per second. Maybe we'll make it 10 seconds. Okay, and yeah, that's it. It's actually 10 frames, so I'm gonna go to here, make it 10 seconds. By the way, to go to the comp settings, you just go here, comp settings, or Control K. So I'm gonna go. The first thing is that if you see in the reference, you got this cool Venom font, which I searched a lot, but unfortunately I couldn't find the exact same thing. But I found some fonts. You know, if you go to Google and search like Venom font, they'll bring up some fonts which are not exactly as this one. So I ended up using the default font, which is the Times New Roman. So I'm just gonna go and create the title. So I'll hit the text tool and like type Venom or anything you want. But the thing is, I'm just gonna go and make it in the center and scale it up, and maybe this much. And we'll just shrink this down a bit. The thing is, we want to make this V a little bit bigger than the rest of the letters. So just double click and select them all and make it smaller, so that it kind of gives the impression of, like, you know, as you see in this thing, the V is a little bigger. So this is the text, and to make it procedural so that like anytime we want, we can change the text and the effect would update. So for that, we should just select this and go to layer, precompose, and move all attributes, and I'm gonna call this the Venom text. And as you can see, it's there. The cool thing about precomposing is that once you're done with the effect, anytime you can go and change the effect and it'll update in the final comp. So that is cool. And we are going to be using a plugin called Trapcode Form to create it. So I'm going to go right click, new solid, and I'll call this form, and I'll go to effect, RG Trapcode, and I'll bring up form. So if you don't have this plugin, you can go to Red Giant Software, which is here. If we go to the Chrome, redgiant.com, and click on the products and click on the Trapcode suite, which is basically the newest version. It contains almost, I believe, 13 plugins, and we're going to be using the form. Here it is, the plugins list. Yeah, so you can go there, and if you don't want to buy it straight away, you can just check out a free trial version, which is the same. They'll just put a X here so that for the rendering purposes, and that's it. So you can go there and download a free trial version also. So what I'm going to do is turn off the text, and I'm going to the base form, and I want to change the base form type from grid to strings, because I want strings like just like these. So I'll just go change it to box strings, and I'll go to the strings in Z. I'll make it 1. I just want 1 in Z. So then the size is linked XYZ right now. If I increase it, they'll increase in all directions. And if I want to change it like individually, so you can just go here and say XYZ individual, and I'll go and bring it up maybe this much. And the thing about it is that if you want to see those sort of swirly things, you have to go to the fractal field and displace it. maybe this much. So now you can see that it's displaced and it's moving also like this, which is very cool. But what I want is, I just want to increase the number of particles, number of strings, so that it's kind of like a bit filled up, and it's not like you can see the particles. I just want to fill it a bit more, so I'll just make it like 220, and I will go to the particle tab and I will change the opacity type, opacity over to radial, and I'll go to the opacity curve, which you can see here, and I'm going to change it to something like this. So you can see the edges are getting less opacity than the middle, and I'll just make this like 15, the overall opacity from 100 to 15. Something's wrong with this number 5 in my keyboard, maybe 16. And now you can see that we get kind of those little threads things, but still I want to eliminate some of these areas. So what you can do, I'll make it maybe 10 even. What you can do is you can just go to effect, color correction and curves, and I'll just go to the alpha and I'll increase it, or decrease it, should I say. And as you can see, it's eliminating those sort of semi-transparent areas. So I'll just make it like this much, and as you can see, it's moving. But this plugin can be a bit slow, especially if you increase the number of strings. So I suggest you make this, okay. I'll do some more changes. Maybe I'll increase the size and the Y also a bit more, this much. And maybe if you want, you can change the number of particles, increase it maybe 300. And yeah, that's it. And I'm gonna go to the project window and I'm gonna just duplicate this form layer, and I'm gonna make a slightly different version. So I'm gonna go to the fractal field and I'll decrease the displace maybe, and I will go to the size. I'll make it a bit smaller, and in the height also maybe this much, like this, not that much, maybe this much. And yeah, and I'll go to the opacity, maybe increase it a bit, maybe decrease it 12 or something. So we just want like 2 different like variations so that later we can use it. So what I'm gonna do is, I have this thing moving, and it's moving kind of fast, it's a bit fast, and this one too. So what I'm gonna do is precompose them separately. We'll turn this on and we'll go to layer, precompose, and I'll go like first and move all the attributes, okay. And the second one too, Control Shift C is the shortcut for precompose, and I'll call this second, and I'll make them slower. The reason I haven't done it inside the form is because it only has one option, the displace, and it just controls it. Like, you can do, there are some settings, but it would be much easier if you just precompose them and just right click and go to time and time stretch and set it to maybe like 500. Okay, and the second one also, right click, time stretch, and 500. Okay, so now if you see, they're like 5 times slower than their real speed. So what I'm gonna do is, now since it is kind of slow, I need to render them so that I can use them easily later. So what I'm gonna do is, I'll just set it to 10 seconds, which is there, and I'm gonna hit Control M or go to composition, add to render queue, and I'm gonna go to this lossless, and I'll set it to QuickTime animation. If you want to have transparency in this file, you can just change the channels to RGB plus alpha. It will include the alpha also, but in this case we don't need it. We can change the transfer mode later. So I'll just use the RGB, hit OK, click on here, and I'll go with Venom form 001, and I'll click render. And I'll be back when it's done, because it is going to take some time. So the render for the first one is done, and I'm going to go back to this comp and turn this the second one, I'm sorry, Second one is done, and I'm going to turn on the first one, and I'll do the same thing. Control M or add to render queue, and I'll go to here, QuickTime Animation RGB, okay, and I'll name it Venom 002, and I'll hit render. Okay, so the render is done, and now we just don't need them. We'll just turn them off and turn the text back on, and I'll go to the project, and I'll just double click and bring these two, which is the Venom form 001 and 002. And I can just put these into the folder, maybe here, and these comps into the comp folder. Remember, the project management is very important. So the thing is, now we have these elements, and I'll bring them, and yeah, you can see that they're like 5 times slower than they were actually in this original. So if you don't want to see these, you can just select them and turn on the shy. If you don't see the shy switch, just click on here, shy, and turn on the main shy switch. It'll be kind of hidden, but they're still there. So now I'm just gonna select this, and I'll hit F4, set it to add or screen or whatever you like. And as you can see in the final one, we have this text is having a bit of fractal noise into it to create a bit of difference in the surface. So I'm gonna go here to the Venom text, and I'll just shrink this down a bit. And I'll create a new solid. So right click new solid, and I'll set it to maybe fractal noise. I'll go to effect, noise and grain, fractal noise. And the only thing that we have to do here is we're just going to go to the transform and make the scale lower, maybe something like 15 or something. And you can set the contrast and the brightness also as you like. And if you want it to animate, we can do it two ways. We can either just keyframe it along time, or we can use an expression. So I'm going to hit Control Z and Alt click on this, and I'll type in time multiplied by maybe 100. So now it's moving along with the time. If the time indicator is 2 seconds, we go here, then the value will also be like 200, because it is going to multiply by time. So 100 multiplied by 2 is 200, and it goes on along with the time. So I'm going to go back to this here, and yeah, we forgot something. We have the fractal noise here, and I'm going to put it down, and I want to use the Venom as an alpha for this fractal noise. So I'm just going to bring it down and bring the track matte. If you don't see it, just click here, and I'll go to alpha matte, and basically that creates a cutout of the fractal noise in the shape of the text. And I don't want it to be that much, maybe this much is fine. I'll come back to it, yeah, and that's it. So now it is the art of compositing, like how you composite it and put it into different ways and different shapes so that it looks cool. So what I'm going to do is I'll put one here, which is fine, and I'll bring the second one also, the 002, and I'll set this to add also. And I will just hit S and scale it down. For some reason my shortcuts are not working. So hit S and bring it down here. And remember, you just want to put like more details, make it look like it's detailed and random. So I'll just put it here, Control D, and put one here, maybe rotate it and like this, and scale it up. You don't want them to look like they're similar, like elements copied over and over again. I just want to put it here one, and maybe scale this down a bit. And the main one, we can just Control D it one more time and scale it down and put it somewhere. That looks cool. And one more time. Just have fun putting this into different places and scaling them up. And you can even hit T and bring the opacity of some of them down, because you don't want too much of a like rush into this. So just have fun doing it, you know, and put it wherever you want. Opacity, rotation, and yeah, something like this. So I'm gonna do a few more. Okay, so let's see how it looks. yeah, it looks pretty cool. And the text is also kind of moving, which is very cool. And what we can do right now is we can just select these all of these Venom layers, and we can just precompose them. Control Shift C, precompose them, and I'll set them back to add, because it's just gonna make it easier. It's like as a one layer, and we can apply effects to it also, like simply in one layer. And if you want to, if you don't want too much of a rush in this middle, you can just mask off this part with an ellipse this much, and I'll set it to subtract, and I'll hit F, and maybe a bit this much. But I think they're looking cool to be in the middle, so I don't want the mask, so delete it. And finally, we just need the color correction, a bit of color, and add this transition, which is basically like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'll go to right click or go to layer, new adjustment layer, and I'll go to effect, color correction, curves, and I'll give it some sort of contrast. Control Z, something like this. I'll go to the RGB, yeah, and I'll go to the red channel and maybe bring it down a bit, because I sort of want to give it a bit of a greenish blue sort of a look. So maybe this. I'll go to the green channel and bring it up a bit, maybe a bit this much, and in the shadows, not that much. Just kind of a little bit of a color. And now I can just create another adjustment layer, and I'll go to effect, blur and sharpen, and I'll set it, hit the CC radial fast blur, make it a bit like this much, and set it to add. It kind of makes it look a bit cool, and we can hit P and bring it like 20%. Kind of gives it a bit of a cool look. So finally, for the transition, I mean, you can spend a lot of time onto it and make some more details and play around with the form, but I just wanted to show you how we do it. So now I can just go for creating this transition. I can just create another adjustment layer, and I'll name it, hit enter, transition, and I'll go, there's a very cool effect called in the distort. It's called the optics compensation, which might be off the screen, but it's there. And you can just set it to reverse and increase this, which will basically zoom in to this point. And you can change this point to anywhere you want, like anywhere. So I'll just zoom it in, maybe this much. I don't want that much, maybe this much. I'll just keyframe it, the field of view, and I'll go to maybe 3 seconds, and I'll set it to 0. So now, as you can see, it's just comes in like a little cool sort of animation. You can even make it smaller, hit U, I mean slower, U, and make it slower. It's looking cool. And I can just add another new solid, which is black, and I'll hit T, keyframe the opacity, 2 seconds, and set it to 0. So now you have the transition also, something like this. And we have a bit of glow also, so we can add a bit of glow, maybe to this, or just add another adjustment layer and put it on top of this, or maybe at the bottom of the transition, and hit enter and glow. I'll go to effect, stylize, and glow, and we just want a bit of glow, nothing too much. Just make it like 75, and I'll decrease the intensity. Just want a bit of glow. So let's take a look. And yeah, this is basically the effect that we've just created. It's just a thing of how much you put the time into it, and how much how much detail you want. It's based on you, but you get the idea. And finally, for the voiceover, I just used my own voice. I recorded it and just. We are And yeah, that's it. So guys, this was the today's tutorial, and hope you enjoyed it. And make sure to go to my channel and subscribe and hit this notification button so that you get it every time I make a new tutorial. And just like the videos, comment any questions you have, any suggestions you might be having regarding the way I do the tutorials or anything. Just share with me, and I'll make sure to answer them all and implement it in the future videos. And yeah, just know that your support is the only thing that can make me continue making these tutorials. Okay, so just make sure to do it and do support me. And yeah, this was the today's tutorial, and hope you enjoyed it. And till next time, enjoy working.